Hello and welcome back to our cottage garden. I was really keen to show you the tulips today because I think they are probably at their best and almost about to go over. We've had a couple of really sunny days, and when the sun's out it kind of shortens their lifespan a bit. A day like this is fine and they'll stay like this for a long time, but the pink ones especially haven't been flowering for very long, and you can see they're looking a little bit singed, so really wanted to get out here and show you these while they're still looking good. The ones that you can see at the moment are called Design Impression and Ivory Floridale. So Design Impression is the tall pink one, and then Ivory Floridale is the small yellow one. And these I added last autumn. So if you watched our bulb planting video, you might remember those going in the ground, and they should be varieties that come back every year. So after they finished flowering, I will deadhead them and feed the borders, probably with a seaweed feed just to feed the leaves, which will in turn feed the bulbs. But I really love them, and I was a little bit taken aback by how bright they were in the sun, but when it's overcast they look quite soft and muted and warm, and almost like a kind of tutti frutti kind of sweet mix, which is really sweet. There are more forget-me-nots now, which is really nice, because last time I showed you around I was a bit worried that we didn't have enough to my liking. There seem to be quite a few, but I do hope that we get more of them next year, because they're something that I just adore and I think they're really stunning. And they self-seed really well, but I wondered whether my leaf mulch was a little bit too thick on these borders this year. And once the tulips have gone over, we've got peonies that are very close to flowering. We've also got alliums that are coming back from last year. And I can't remember the name of the alliums, but I know they're a tall white variety. I don't think they're Mount Everest. I think they're a similar one to Mount Everest, but slightly smaller. So I will show you those perhaps in our next video. And we've also got a daffodil in this bed called Stainless, Narcissus Stainless. It's this really pretty white one, and these have been in for a couple of years now, and they come back every year, and I just think they're so pretty. They're really clear and the shape of them is stunning. They're probably my favourite variety to grow in the garden. And I love the way that they kind of mute the colour palette of this bed a little bit when things feel a little bit too colourful for my liking. So that's one that I really love, and probably will add more of to the other side to make it more symmetrical next year. In terms of tulips that reflowered, we had loads of success as always with Red Impression. That one's been really reliable for us. And then we've also got this Viridiflora tulip called Spring Green. That one has returned from last year and is more or less the same size as it was originally. That's one that people say is quite good as a repeat flowerer. But I have tried this one in other places in the garden too, closer to the house, and it hasn't come back, which is really frustrating. So it kind of seems like you can try the varieties, but it might depend on where they end up and the kind of soil situation, and if they get enough moisture and things. And they like a dry summer as well, so perhaps closer to the house they might be a bit too damp in the summer, whereas here they end up being a bit drier, and so they come back more reliably. But it's all a bit of an experiment. There is still a lot of unfilled space in these two borders, and I'm trying to fill these up with perennials and annual flowers that I'm growing from seed, which you'll see in the greenhouse later on. But it's still a work in progress really, and there are a lot of oriental poppies and peonies in these beds, but they are flowers that go over so quickly. There's kind of a gap in summer, so in the long term my plan is to build up both of these sides so that they have some kind of late spring and summer interest, possibly even autumn if possible. So that's something that I'm going to be working on over the next few months. And I mentioned before I've lost quite a few plants in the really cold winter, so I did have some tree mallows in here that have died, and even my perennial kale has died, which is really sad because it was looking so well last year. But as we had those really cold nights, it just got deader and deader, and doesn't seem to have survived, so that's a shame. I might have to try and order another one of those, but they're quite hard to get hold of now. So I'll take that out at some point, but I wanted to show you around today because I just think this is such a nice time of year and the tulips look amazing, so I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. Now that we're approaching No Mow May, I thought I would show you some of the areas that we're not going to be mowing. So this is our mini meadow, which we probably won't be mowing until June. And it's a mix of things that are wild and self-seeding, and then bulbs that I've been adding myself, and primroses that I've been helping to kind of move around, though these do appear naturally here, which is really lovely. And there's always something new here. So we haven't been mowing this in spring for about 2 or 3 years, and each year something new will just appear and we don't know how it got here, but it's just so lovely to kind of watch this area evolve and see what this space would look like as a natural meadow. So this year I've noticed we've got loads of wild violets in the grass, which are really pretty, and I've never noticed them here before. So it just goes to show the things that can happen if you do take part in No Mow May. Obviously we've got the primroses looking really amazing, and the bluebells are starting to appear now as well. And these are another thing that I haven't added to this area. They've just somehow found their way in. And there's also a white one, which is really pretty. And again, something I haven't added, but I'm just so happy to see. The bluebells are making their way into the lawn as well. So some of them are just on the kind of edge of the border, but they are starting to appear in the grass. And I'm in two minds about whether I should add any myself to kind of build them up or just let it happen naturally. They are the Spanish bluebells, so they're kind of more imposing than the English bluebell, and they're very tall and have these really big flowers on the top. And I think if I see them flowering while we still have the fritillaries in here, they might take away that kind of delicate look that the fritillaries give. So not sure what to do about those. I'll possibly just add some to the side or put them in the border, but they definitely seem to be enjoying this area as kind of a woodland garden. So I might just add some under the oak tree, perhaps in place of my failed woodland anemones, which after planting about 125, I only had 2 of them flower. And I did think that's something that I want to try and work on again, but I think sometimes the garden kind of tells you what it wants, and clearly the bluebells are thriving here, so who knows what to do about that. But if you have any ideas, do let me know, because I'd love to hear them. But this will soon be taken over with cow parsley. You can see it's popping up in the grass, and then it will get really tall. And I think something I would like to do is add some camassia, so that there's a later kind of spring bulb that will accompany the cow parsley and add a bit of colour to this area. Because I think cow parsley is really pretty, but there won't be any colour once we're in that kind of stage. And although I did order some bulbs last autumn for planting, I ran out of time and didn't manage to get them in. So that might be something that I attempt again this year, but it's a slow process, and again, gardening is a kind of long-term journey, and as far as this area looks at the moment, I'm super happy with it. And over the last few days when it's been really sunny, I've just been sitting here and watching the bees, and there's so many, and I can see one there now. It's just a really, really nice area to enjoy and watch the insects that you can find. In the first bit of our garden, I wanted to show you around briefly because the forget-me-nots are looking really good, and those have spread like crazy, and they're really, really big, and they're one of the first things you can see as you're looking at the cottage. So I think those are really lovely and one of my favourite signs of spring. We've also got the native daffodil in the grass, so that's Narcissus pseudolabaris, I think it's called. You can correct me on the pronunciation if I got that wrong. But I've planted a line of those, and they are flowering later than they usually would because I planted them so late, but a line of them opposite the cottage, so they will be one of the first things that I see when I look out the window in the morning, which is lovely. We're also finally allowed to let the ducks out now. They've been in lockdown for months, which is a normal thing for the winter here. We have to keep them in because of the bird flu risk, and then we get notified when they can come out again. So they've been out here and they've been enjoying the sunshine and having a forage, and they love eating slugs in the vegetable garden, which is really helpful. So it's been really nice to have them out again, and hopefully you'll see a few more videos of our ducks as we move forward into the year. I thought I'd show you the polytunnel and the greenhouses because I'm feeling quite on top of them compared to normal for this time of year. Yesterday I was out here for about 7 hours, and I was mostly potting on seedlings, sowing seeds. I tidied up these trellises a bit, and things feel more manageable than they usually do, so that's really good. I've planted out my aubergines, and it's a little bit too early to be planting out the heat-loving plants still, but in the interest of space I've kind of just had to do it. I did the same with my cucumbers, and only one of them is looking like it's really enjoying itself. The rest look a bit miserable, which is a shame. I think it might be that the nights are a little bit too cold for them still. But I think I can try and sow some more if I get stuck, so it's not the end of the world. The cherry tree here is looking really lovely, and this is a dwarf cherry tree, and I wanted it by the door so that it would get pollinated. And I've seen the there's loads of pollinators on it right now, so it's obviously working, which is really nice, and hopefully we'll see some fruit on that later in the year. The broad beans are going crazy. I feel like each time I come out here they're so much bigger, and they've got loads of flowers on now, so it won't be long until we're harvesting broad beans again, and we like making broad bean dip with those, and just having them on toast. They're a really, really nice thing with a bit of salt if you double pod them. Really tasty, so can't wait for that. We've got a little bit of chard. Our parsley is kind of finishing. It looks like it will go to flower soon, but we just leave things in for as long as we can. And I may even let that flower and collect the seed from it, because I don't know if I've got any more parsley seed, and it's something that I really love growing. I did notice yesterday that I've had a mouse in here, and this happens every now and again. It's eaten all my peas, so I need to try some more pea plants. I think I've got about probably 10 plants left, but it has eaten at least 5, so probably put a few more peas in, because they're something that I also really love, and will be disappointed if I don't grow any. Next, I'll show you the small greenhouse. So we're more or less on top of our food seedlings and plants, and we've got those kind of planted out where they need to go, whether that's in the polytunnel or at Aaron's allotment. There's still a few things in here like purple sprouting broccoli and kale that I'm just going to let grow a little bit bigger before I plant them out. But the main thing in here is flowers that I've grown from seed, and this is quite a new thing for me to grow this many at least. But everything in here is either from cutting or seed, and it's a perennial, so I'm trying to build up what I'm growing in the borders on a budget by growing things from seed, and it does take a while. So these are things that I sowed last spring, and they will probably go in the ground this year. But we've got the hollyhocks here, which look like they will want potting on soon. They're starting to get quite a big taproot, so I don't want to disturb that too much. This is Achillea, and this one's called Love Parade, and when I sowed this I did not expect it to be so successful from seed, and I think I must have about 20 plants of this, so not sure what I'm going to do with 20 of these, but they have really been doing well. I always oversow just in case things don't do as well as I would like, but they've done amazingly. I've also got some field scabious here, and this, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called Rosalie Sedalcia, so if anyone's grown that, let me know. I think I bought those as plug plants a few years ago, and I didn't have time to get them in the garden, so I've just been keeping them in here until they're nice and big. The sneezewort that I took as cuttings are doing amazing, and I potted these on yesterday, just so they've got a bit more space. Again, I think I've got about 20 plants of that, so that's going to be another thing that we've got loads of in the garden, and I know it spreads quite well too, so that will be good to help fill up the borders. And then I've also got loads of cosmos, and this is just the white one, which is called Antiquity, but got loads of this, and I love growing cosmos because it has such a long flowering season. We get flowers almost up until the first frost, so it can be flowering into October and November, when not much else is, so I'm really keen to get some more of that in the garden. But yeah, everything in here is going well, and probably more flowers than food at the moment, which is kind of surprising, but I think it's just because we've been on top of getting our food plants out into the ground. And I just thought we'd stop in the orchard briefly to show you the blossom. We're a little bit early for the apple blossom, but this is the blossom on our pear tree, and the cherry trees are currently in flower as well at the moment, and they look amazing. That one behind me is absolutely huge, and we've never harvested any fruit from it because it's so big. The birds can reach it more easily than we can. This area is still not quite looking well. It goes through transition phases, and sometimes it looks better than others. So we have the daffodils in early spring, and then the next time that it looks really good is when we've got the cow parsley, and you can see it's almost ready to flower. It's getting really nice and tall, but it's not quite there yet, so I expect in a week or so's time this will look better. And one thing I did a couple of weeks ago was I added some more oriental poppies to this area, because when we moved in there was one, and it flowers in the summer every year, and it does really well here. And I never really thought about growing oriental poppies in grass because I assumed that the grass might smother them, but having seen how well that one's done, I did add 4 or 5 more, and we'll see if those take well to this area, and if they do I probably will add more, because it means we'll have the flowers of poppies that will come back every year without needing to scrape the ground and sow annual wildflower seeds, and the bees still love them too, so that's something that I'm experimenting with at the moment. But I thought I would stop and show you the blossom because it is looking really pretty. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed having a look around today and seeing our tulips and spring flowers. It feels like there's a bit of a shift now where we're going to move from spring flowers to really focusing on growing food and vegetables. So that's going to be something that we're focusing on over the next few weeks and months. But be sure to give us a subscribe if you want to follow our cottage garden journey over the upcoming months and years.